Here's a short, powerful hook for your story. She begged for another chance, but forgot exactly who shattered the first one. One a bit softer or more mysterious. I can tweak it. The moment I saw her again, it was like the air shifted without a sound. She stood there with that same quiet confidence I remembered, the kind that didn't need to fill a room to own it. But now, there was something softer in her eyes, like a flicker of vulnerability beneath the surface, barely noticeable unless you were looking closely. She was older, of course, the subtle lines around her eyes and the gentle silver threading through her dark hair marked the years we'd lost. But it didn't diminish her grace. If anything, it added a depth to her presence, a story whispered in every slow, deliberate movement she made. The way she held herself, poised yet inviting, drew my gaze back even as my mind fought to keep me distant. When she stepped forward, our eyes locked, and I caught a faint scent, jasmine, mingled with something familiar, something that instantly pulled me back to late afternoons and whispered promises I thought were long gone. It was in that scent that I felt the weight of time between us. Her voice was steady, but underneath, I heard the hope that maybe we could start again. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said, a subtle tremor betraying how much this moment mattered. She reached out, her fingertips barely grazing my arm, an electric yet tentative touch. It was like she was testing the waters, waiting to see if I'd pull away or let her in. For a heartbeat, I wanted to close the distance, to let the past fall away in the warmth of her touch. But memories, sharp and unyielding, pressed against my chest. The past wasn't just a shadow. It was a storm I wasn't ready to face. So I held back. Our conversation began cautiously, words soft and measured, like dancers moving around a fragile truth neither dared name. We talked about small things, the weather, the city's changes, the slow creep of time. But beneath the surface, there was a current of unspoken emotions. Regret, longing, the ache of what we'd lost and what might never be. She smiled then, a small, bittersweet curve of her lips, and I noticed how her eyes shimmered with a hint of tears, quickly blinked away. She wanted this chance, clearly, and maybe she believed in it more than I did. But I couldn't forget who had been the one to break us, who had walked away when it mattered most. Still, as she lingered just a breath away, her presence stirred something in me, the quiet ache of a connection that refused to be fully erased. Her hand brushed again, this time against the back of mine, and I felt the steady beat of her pulse, a fragile rhythm trying to reach mine. In that fragile moment, the past wasn't just a memory, it was alive, fragile, and raw. And somewhere between the hope in her eyes and the hesitation in my heart, a slow flame began to flicker. The soft clink of porcelain cups filled the quiet space between us, a gentle rhythm to accompany the conversation we were both hesitant to start. We found ourselves in a small cafe, the kind of place where time seemed to slow and the world outside faded into a blur of muted sounds and soft light. It was the perfect setting for something fragile, something that felt like walking on glass. She stirred her tea slowly, the delicate silver spoon catching the light. I watched the way her fingers curled around the cup, a small sign of comfort amid the tension that tightened my chest. Her eyes, steady but searching, met mine again. "I know things ended badly," she said quietly, her voice barely above the hum of the cafe. "But I want you to believe I'm different now." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning I wasn't ready to accept. I wanted to trust her, more than I had in years. But the weight of that broken promise anchored me to doubt. What had she forgotten, or worse, chosen to ignore? The truth was still lodged deep in my heart, a painful echo I couldn't shake. The light filtered through the window, casting fractured patterns across the table, mirroring the fractures in our conversation. I remember the day everything fell apart, the silence that followed, the distance growing between us like a chasm. It wasn't just about mistakes. It was about who we had become when that trust shattered. Her hand moved to the edge of the table, fingertips brushing against mine for a fleeting moment, a spark of connection amid the hesitation. I felt the warmth of her skin, smooth and real, a reminder of what had once been good between us. Yet beneath the surface, the memories stirred, the broken promises, the unanswered questions, the nights I spent replaying everything, trying to make sense of how we got here. She leaned forward slightly, voice softer now, almost a whisper. I never stopped thinking about you, about us. It was a confession, raw and unguarded. For a moment, the walls I had built began to tremble. But doubt still clung to me like a shadow. Could I truly believe that the past was behind us? Was this a chance to rebuild, or just another story waiting to end in heartbreak? The cafe's warmth surrounded us, mingling with the scent of coffee and the faint trace of her perfume. Something floral, elusive, like a promise just out of reach. I tried to steady my breath as the tension swelled, the fragile thread between hope and fear pulling taut. She met my gaze again, and for a heartbeat, I saw the woman I had once loved, strong, vulnerable, and real. But the question remained, unspoken but loud. Could I forgive? Could I trust again? The afternoon light shifted, shadows lengthening as the day moved on. We sat there, caught between what was lost and what might be, both hesitant to bridge the space that still separated us. In that quiet moment, I realized that the past wasn't something we could simply forget. It was a weight we had to carry, and maybe if we were brave enough, learn to hold together. There was a new rhythm between us now, slower and more delicate, like learning a dance where every step mattered. We moved cautiously closer, neither rushing nor retreating, as if testing the fragile ground beneath our feet. The space between us wasn't just physical anymore. It carried the weight of years, regrets, and a quiet hope neither of us dared speak aloud. I remember the moment clearly. We were standing by the edge of a park, the late afternoon sun spilling gold across the grass. The air was warm, scented faintly with the sweet aroma of blooming flowers, mingling with the earthy scent of the cooling earth beneath our feet. A gentle breeze stirred her hair, and without thinking, I reached out, my fingers brushing a loose strand behind her ear. Her eyes flickered up to meet mine, wide and searching, and for a moment, the world around us hushed. The light touch lingered longer than expected, a silent conversation passing between us. The heat of her skin was surprisingly soothing, a quiet comfort amid the storm of doubts swirling in my mind. Her hand found mine then, tentative and slow, like a question waiting for an answer. The pulse beneath her skin was steady, reassuring. As our fingers intertwined, the years apart seemed to blur, replaced by something fragile and hopeful. I felt the weight, our shoulders brushed, a simple contact, but it sent a ripple of warmth up my spine. The soft cadence of her laughter filled the air, light and real, breaking down walls I hadn't realized I'd built so high. There was a quiet intimacy in the way she leaned in just slightly when we talked, her breath warm against my cheek. I caught the faint scent of her perfume again, a subtle blend of vanilla and something floral, delicate and familiar. It settled around us like a whispered promise, drawing me in despite my lingering fears. We paused on a bench, sitting close enough that our legs nearly touched. I could feel the rise and fall of her breath, slow and steady. When she shifted, her arm brushed mine, a soft, accidental graze that lingered just a moment longer than expected. It wasn't much, but it was enough to stir something inside me, a reminder that connection could still be found in these small, tender moments. Her eyes held mine then, steady and open, and I saw the same mix of hope and hesitation mirrored in her gaze. The silence stretched between us, comfortable and charged all at once. Neither of us needed to say anything. The space we shared said everything, a delicate dance of nearness, vulnerability, and the quiet yearning to reach out and bridge the gap. Memories flooded my mind, sharp and vivid like shards of glass. The day she walked away, the slammed door echoing in my chest, the hollow ache that settled deep inside. I traced the worn edges of an old photograph on the bedside table. Her smile frozen in time, radiant and carefree. How had we gone from that to this? From promises whispered in the dark to a silence that stretched like a canyon between us? I could still feel the weight of that moment, the sting of betrayal that wasn't just about actions, but about trust shattered beyond repair. It wasn't anger that gripped me now, but something quieter and more painful, a bruised tenderness, a cautious sorrow that whispered of love lost, but not forgotten. The faint hum of the city seeped through the window, distant and indifferent, as if life outside carried on without us. I closed my eyes, breathing in the cool, stale air, letting it fill my lungs, but never quite reaching the part of me that still ached. The ache wasn't just for what she did, but for what we were, two souls caught between regret and hope, unwilling to fully let go or fully hold on. I thought about her voice, soft yet certain, when she said she wanted another chance. Could I believe her? Did I want to? The question haunted me like a ghost, slipping through my thoughts in restless waves. Forgiveness felt like a mountain too steep to climb, but the idea of never trying felt like an even greater loss. My fingers brushed against a folded letter I had tucked away long ago, the last thing she had written before everything fell apart. The paper was fragile now, edges curled and soft, much like the fragile thread of connection that remained between us. I unfolded it carefully, tracing the faded ink with a hesitant touch, as if reaching back into a past that might never be fully repaired. Her words were full of hope then, promises I had wanted to believe in. But somewhere along the way, those promises had fractured, lost beneath misunderstandings and mistakes. I wondered if she remembered that, if she still felt the weight of what was broken. The night pressed on, deep and unyielding, wrapping me in its quiet embrace. I felt the coldness of the sheets beneath my fingertips, the cool contrast to the storm of emotions inside. I wanted to reach out, to bridge the distance, but the fear held me back. Fear of being hurt again, fear of letting down my guard too soon. Yet, beneath the hesitation, there was a flicker of something new, a fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, the past could be carried without crushing the future. That the wounds, while deep, might heal with time and tenderness. For now, though, I stayed there, caught between the weight of what was lost and the possibility of what could be. The rain tapped softly against the window pane, a steady rhythm that matched the slow unfolding of the moment between us. We sat side by side in her cozy living room, the warm glow of a single lamp casting gentle shadows around the room. Outside, the world was washed clean and quiet, but inside, everything felt raw and alive. She looked at me then, her eyes shimmering with a mix of regret and something fragile. Hope, maybe, or the courage to finally speak the truth. For a long moment, she said nothing, as if weighing whether to break the silence that had grown between us like a wall. Then, quietly, she began, "I never meant to hurt you," her voice barely above a whisper, trembling with honesty. "I was scared, lost in my own mistakes, and I pushed you away instead of holding on." The vulnerability in her words was unexpected, peeling back the confident facade I'd seen before, revealing the woman beneath, flawed, aching, and real. I watched as a tear escaped the corner of her eye, tracing a slow, glistening path down her cheek. The sight stirred something deep inside me, a mixture of sorrow and compassion that I hadn't realized was still there. Her hands, resting on her lap, trembled slightly, and instinctively, I reached out, covering them gently with mine. Her skin was warm despite the chill in the air, and the softness of her touch was a balm to the wounds we both carried. She didn't pull away. Instead, her fingers curled slowly around mine, a silent plea for understanding. "I was afraid you'd never forgive me," she confessed, voice breaking. "And maybe I was afraid to forgive myself, too." There was a weight in her words, the kind that settles between two people when walls come down, leaving only the bare truth. I felt the tightness in my chest loosen, the anger and pain giving way to something more tender. This wasn't about forgetting the past, but about seeing it clearly, accepting the hurt, and choosing to move forward anyway. The rain outside grew steadier, but inside, the room felt warmer, as if her vulnerability had melted the last remnants of the distance between us. I want to tell her that it was okay to be afraid, that I was scared too, that despite everything, I still cared deeply. Her gaze met mine, searching, hesitant but open. "Can we try?" she asked, the simple question carrying the weight of all she hoped for. I nodded slowly, not because the past was erased, but because in that moment I realized that love, real love, wasn't about perfection. It was about the willingness to be seen, to be broken, and to be rebuilt together. We sat like that for a while, hands entwined, the quiet sound of rain wrapping us in a fragile peace. The space between us wasn't empty anymore. It was filled with possibility. The rain tapped softly against the window pane, a steady rhythm that matched the slow unfolding of the moment between us. We sat side by side in her cozy living room, the warm glow of a single lamp casting gentle shadows around the room. Outside, the world was washed clean and quiet, but inside, everything felt raw and alive. She looked at me then, her eyes shimmering with a mix of regret and something fragile. Hope, maybe, or the courage to finally speak the truth. For a long moment, she said nothing, as if weighing whether to break the silence that had grown between us like a wall. Then, quietly, she began, "I never meant to hurt you," her voice barely above a whisper, trembling with honesty. "I was scared, lost in my own mistakes, and I pushed you away instead of holding on." The vulnerability in her words was unexpected, peeling back the confident facade I'd seen before, revealing the woman beneath, flawed, aching, and real. I watched as a tear escaped the corner of her eye, tracing a slow, glistening path down her cheek. The sight stirred something deep inside me, a mixture of sorrow and compassion that I hadn't realized was still there. Her hands, resting on her lap, trembled slightly, and instinctively, I reached out, covering them gently with mine. Her skin was warm despite the chill in the air, and the softness of her touch was a balm to the wounds we both carried. She didn't pull away. Instead, her fingers curled slowly around mine, a silent plea for understanding. "I was afraid you'd never forgive me," she confessed, voice breaking. "And maybe I was afraid to forgive myself, too." There was a weight in her words, the kind that settles between two people when walls come down, leaving only the bare truth. I felt the tightness in my chest loosen, the anger and pain giving way to something more tender. This wasn't about forgetting the past, but about seeing it clearly, accepting the hurt, and choosing to move forward anyway. The rain outside grew steadier, but inside, the room felt warmer, as if her vulnerability had melted the last remnants of the distance between us. I wanted to tell her that it was okay to be afraid, that I was scared too, that despite everything, I still cared deeply. Her gaze met mine, searching, hesitant but open. "Can we try?" she asked, the simple question carrying the weight of all she hoped for. I nodded slowly, not because the past was erased, but because in that moment I realized that love, real love, wasn't about perfection. It was about the willingness to be seen, to be broken, and to be rebuilt together. We sat like that for a while, hands entwined, the quiet sound of rain wrapping us in a fragile peace. The space between us wasn't empty anymore. It was filled with possibility. The evening breeze was soft, carrying with it the faint scent of blooming jasmine and the distant murmur of city life winding down. We walked slowly, side by side, the gentle rhythm of our steps matching the quiet beat of a new chapter unfolding between us. The air was cool but comforting, a perfect balance, much like the fragile harmony we'd worked so hard to find. Her fingers brushed lightly against mine, a touch so subtle it felt like a secret shared only between us. The warmth of her skin lingered long after the contact, grounding me in the present and reminding me of how far we'd come. There was no rush, no need to fill the silence. The space between us was filled with understanding, with the kind of quiet affection that speaks louder than words. If there had once been shadows lurking between us, doubts, fears, the echoes of a painful past, They now felt like distant memories, softened by time and tenderness. What remained was something rare and beautiful, a connection forged not despite our history, but because of it. We found ourselves back at her place, where the soft light spilled from the windows, casting warm glows on familiar faces. There were others there, women who had been part of our stories in different ways, each bringing their own light, their own layers of love and complexity. The way they smiled at each other, the ease in their laughter, told me this was no longer just about two people. It was about a community built on acceptance, respect, and genuine care. I watched as they gathered around her, their eyes reflecting kindness and understanding. It was a scene of quiet harmony, where differences didn't divide, but instead wove together into a richer tapestry of companionship. The age gap, the mistakes, the pain, all of it felt like threads in the fabric of a story that was far from ordinary, but deeply real. She caught my eye across the room, and the look she gave me was soft, full of gratitude and something deeper, a promise that we were in this together, no matter what came next. I smiled back, feeling a swell of hope and peace. Later, as the night grew still, we found a quiet corner to sit close. Her cheek brushed lightly against my shoulder, the faint rhythm of her heartbeat steady and reassuring. I reached out, tucking a stray lock of hair behind her ear, a gesture full of warmth and gentle affection. It was a simple touch, but in it, I felt the weight of everything we'd overcome. We talked then, not about the past or the fears that once held us back, but about the future, uncertain, yes, but promising. We spoke of dreams and plans, of small moments we wanted to share, of the kind of love that grows quietly, steadily, without rush or pretense. There was no grand declaration, no sudden epiphany. Just two people, healing and hopeful, ready to walk forward, together. In that moment, I knew we had truly begun again, not as strangers or broken souls, but as companions who had learned that love could be patient, forgiving, and beautifully imperfect. And as the night deepened, wrapped in the gentle glow of possibility, I felt certain that this time it was real.